Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. 다 자주台湾의 용에 최저 상물로리아 아니 참지유 아니 거수슈
首先，非常欢迎诸位发言人在此问候你们的时代。
아니 로자와 자는지 춘주간에 다디 네 처저스는 디그리 기루스는 디그리 간다 다 겜베자지 나 들대 양자 계주시 용도 드스텔레
这次翻译嘉宾先从小到这边，我们也可以称为发言，也可以说是我私人的徒弟，昨天是算是徒弟吧，算是一个年长的徒弟了，所以欢迎他们这边做翻译。
다음 사람들 로그스 심으래. 신다 로그스 시도. 자자가. 야. 근데 냐마 용용인데 그죠?
请，如果你们之前有来过的话，请举手。
용용. 나 되겠어. 야, 나 사람이 지라고讲的，有没有的？
之前没有来过的话，请举手。
马上有没有的话？
大部分是没有来过的，肯定是。
当然了，我的农具查询的那个这样子价格的呢，是你不得这个送，俺地区的那么上不得，是吧？读书你们少了少，写了那不好少，俺看来他经常拍着少少，俺解释这了就不少，是这样的，那么休息了就不得下。 자기가 나서서 남이 자기가 나는 되게 요래 말람데 야오시시도 와다이니 시로님 그 직등의 잔신보다 아니 아다 말람 안다 식 시버디 러디에 직 삼르 날에 디 턴디 로르 샤르신베타네 아니 말람 저기나 다디 태고 치중기 슝용조로다 차대로 소리지 역사열에
So first we'll do the Heart Sutra in Chinese, and then after that there is this one verse prayer in Chinese that they say, which so if you could say these two prayers, while saying the prayers, it would be good to think about the meaning of these lines, text, the Heart Sutra and the four-line prayer. Because it's these texts or prayers will summarizes or comprise all the teachings of the Mahayana practice, Mahayana tradition. And so with regard to the verse in Chinese that would be said, it goes like this. May we be able to overcome the three poisons. May the wisdom light, may the wisdom light shine, and may all the obstacles be overcome, and may we be able to engage in the bodhisattva practices. So he's going to be the chant leader. 88. $92.3 per track. The Blessed One was once, thus have I heard, the Blessed One was once staying in Rajgriha at Locha Peak, along with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, Blessed One fully entered the meditative concentration on the varieties of phenomena called the appearance of the profound. At that very time also, the holy Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, beheld the practice itself of the profound perfection of wisdom and saw that even the five aggregates are empty of inherent nature. Thereupon, through the Buddha's inspiration, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to holy Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, and said, "How should a son or daughter of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom?" When this had been said, holy Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, spoke to Venerable Shariputra and said, "Shariputra, any noble son or noble daughter who wishes to practice the profound perfection of wisdom should see this way. They should see correctly that even the five aggregates are empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, form also is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, causal factors, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. In this way, Shariputra, all things are empty. They are without defining characteristics. They are not born, nor do they cease. They are not defiled, nor undefiled. They are not deficient, nor complete. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition factors, and no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There is no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no texture, no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to no mind element, and also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, and no elimination of ignorance, and so on, up to no aging and death, and no elimination of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering cessation, origin cessation, and there is no wisdom, no attainment, and even no Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainments, they rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom, having no obscuration in their minds. They have no fear, and passing completely beyond error, they reach nirvana. Likewise, all the Buddhas abiding in the three times awakened to the fully manifest, unsurpassed, perfect, and complete enlightenment through having relied upon this perfection of wisdom. Therefore, one should know that the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, and the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that crowds all suffering is true because it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed that Yata Gata Gata Para Gata Para Sangha de Bodhi Swaha. Therefore, Shariputra, a bodhisattva, a great being, should train the profound perfection of wisdom in this way. Thereupon, the Blessed One rose from that meditative concentration and commended holy. And he commended the holy Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, excellent, excellent, O noble child. It is just so. It is just so. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom in that manner that you have revealed. Then the Tathagatas will rejoice. This is what the Blessed One said. Thereupon the Venerable Shariputra, the holy Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, and that entire assembly, along with the worlds of gods, humans, Asuras, and Gandharvas, all rejoiced and highly praised what the Blessed One had said. So this prayer says, may all the three poisons be eliminated, may the wisdom light shine forth, may all obstacles be cleared away, and may we be able to engage in the Bodhisattva practices. So, His Holiness is reciting the one verse in praise of the perfection of wisdom, the mother of all Buddhas of the three times. The mantra of Heart Sutra, Para Gate Para Sangate Bodhi Swaha, De Atha Gate Gate Para Gate Para Sangate Bodhi Swaha. This is the salutation verse from Abhisamaya Alamkara, or the ornament for clear realization, by Maitreya, Lord Maitreya. It pays homage to the mothers of the Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, and Buddhas. And this is the verse salutation from Nagarjuna's fundamental treatise of the Middle Way, which praises the Buddha for teaching in interdependent origination. So the teaching that we are going to have today is the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment by Adisha Divankara Shijana. And just today there was some discussion about some initiation or some permission initiation earlier today. And so usually when I do give teachings like this, I give a general explanation of the Dharma, which is an introduction to Buddhism. As an introduction to Buddhism, I do this general explanation.
那之後呢，我們再進行正式這部論點的一個解釋。
當然了，機械體，當然的，那麼的美術圖裡呢，日本堂國的那種美籍國啥的，看到日本的地方，特別是美通州敦士學的，但這差不多美籍國差的個的。다 개시슈디 동네 대원 아니 다가는 신경이 상루동야 튼주신다도 맨다지 상루동야지 최르도 남지기 싫었어야지 예대버지 다 동주 된줄 하지 상말로 집을 차대게 하래 에는 거 눈대시디 동주 된주디 깨베 거둘러 집을 짓게 되게 하래 시베 그들이 집을 시기 얼마도 지금本部인 라마 인생 계획 그들을 만들지 경험에도 시베 그들을 만들지 생에 할람 야마다 가셔 이것도 와도 셴미도가 자들이 이르사데 가다 미통주 등주디 사월로 등주 타주 사월로 가다 집을 차대게 하래 다 지 묘모 차단세야 디지털이 ngā sāma lō yō tēpa jīgwa rē. Tāyāng chāmbā tō tsāwā sā tīndē yō tēpa tī ngā zō mī sāma lō jīgwa chā tēki yō rē. Tā ngā rō rīpa tī kāne ngā shē tēki yō.
So, with regard to the general explanation first, whenever I meet other people, I always talk on the basis of us all being same in terms of being same human beings. So the 7 billion people in the world all are same in the sense that we are all same human beings. And so nobody wants suffering, but everyone wants happiness. So in that sense, we are all the same, and also we all have the same intelligence to judge between what is right from wrong. And we are born the same way, and we die the same way. Whether you are leaders of nations, or lamas, or some teachers, except for few people who may be able to die in a different way, all of us, the others, die and are born the same way. And then we are same in terms of having attachment, anger, and also having love and compassion to other sentient beings. So I'm always talking on this basic human level of being same human beings.
会可能实相有点不一样了，这是特例了，但是基本上来講的話都是差不多的。總而言之，我們都是人，在這個層次上來講的話，沒有任何的區別，這我們必須要去認知。我們同樣的都有離苦得樂的這個想法，在這一個點上我們沒有差別。我們同樣的都有七情六慾，都有貪，都有嗔，都有痴，這一點來講沒有差別。我們同樣的都有潛能，也有能力去愛或者被愛，具有這種慈心、悲心。這一個能力來講的話，以擁有這種能力的層面而言，也沒有差別。
呀，다 ngā sāma lō, dungē mi dhūpa tā dewa dhūpa, tā mi sāma dhūma sēpē, tūntu sūnjē lō, dungē mi dhūpa tā dewa dhūpa jīkpa rwa. Tā khyabara jīgdi, tūntu tā mi tūmu lō yō dewe tā, dewa dhūpa dungē, rik jīgdi, zō gōngē shēpa lō tēndēngē. Tā mi gi jīg sūk, 다 이동하면 되게 타네 디도 나의 자녀 많이 되게 타네 디도 용대야 엔 대신도 치 로 렉샤 디도 타네 나디 메드도 찍어버려도 다 밀이야 캐버를 찍디 가야슬나 민 남주 찍다 맨다죠 여러 삼도 안 싶죠라로 삼도 안 여도 디 gembe 레도 먹고 싶지 라와도 타고도 먹고 싶지 디 gembe 이류 땡기 깁 뭐집어야 돼 시다 숙소 유튜브 시다 밀라 자 드리면 이두산에 다 공에 sheba gyune yon deagi ji didu sayadi tundu de jigorala maranzu di gogo yare ta dana lu de da ji gogo yare jiza ene ji su yi do zai pe nyamba ji di di ma zo de jare de be yon de ngas do wa je de di jigo thane ene digi yungur bes la yina 다 저저거 샤도 라 일루제네 일루 땡기 디두스야디 맹해지기 싫어 맹해 둔루집에 있는 폐지 다 그러셔 공연 시베 통에 있으면 주는 다 다른 리뷰 소치래 아주 미인도산에 남주그 통에 레더 시부 시베 인도산에 공연 시베 균에 지다 동에 뇽지다 지 대화 망주에서부터 뒤지고 조금에 되지 그 이루를 대등하기 뒤도 숙성부 시부장서 예배 인도 다디 르 공의 시베 통에 지 그게 대신 기버지가 이나야 샘 그래도 그 gembe 뭐 기버여나 디세 통도가 죄송아 샘기 나네 지 이츠버지 땅에 내가 전에 시셔버디 배다 내 더든 주스 더든 럽치부지 죽이요 삼배서로지기 3년 안에 지금 일류간에 숙지여가 있는 류구강에 채배이네 디 당도 내야지 그러니까 강에디 안데 general 다야서로지 그봐 세상가 그런데 일류 삼로 동단 일류 디두디 숙체도와 너체도와 조체도와 류 디두디 대충으로도 또 최신식 시험에는 공연 시험을 땡땡에기 동해대 심기 이익이 대 쓰기는 돼야지 이익이 뭐기에 동해대 공연 시험에 땡네 대배연대 무슨 사고 전에 이 츠부지에 있나야 디 심기 동해대 쓰기는 못 돼야지 디사도
这一种的层次呢，我们称为叫做第一层次，这叫做我们最原始的一个层次。那人和众生和或者是动物哈。
So all of us do not want suffering, but we want happiness. So in this sense, even animals are the same in not wanting suffering, but wanting happiness. But the difference here with regards to the happiness or pleasure that we draw is between the sensorial experiences and of suffering and happiness, which are based on the beautiful sights, interesting sounds, music and smell, taste and touch. But as human beings, we have this mind, this intelligence. So let's say the blessing, the prayer for the tea. So as human beings, the difference that we have from animals is that we have this intelligence with which we can make hope. So someone is asking the Chinese chant leader if he has some prayer for the bread. So because of this intelligence that we have, we can make lots of thought processes can go on in our mind, and therefore we have much hopes and fears that come on the basis of these thought processes that go on based on our intelligence, this mind that we have as humans. Of course, we need beautiful sights, sounds, and all these sensorial experiences, sensorial things. To draw happiness within ourselves. But the question remains, will it bring true satisfaction in us or not? Of course, animals may be satisfied with the mere sensorial experiences based on the good sounds, good food and taste and all these things. But for humans, that's not enough. So sensorial experience alone cannot give us true happiness. We have, because we have this mind, and on the basis of which we have all kinds of experiences that do not rely on the sensorial experience as such. And so the physical pleasure that may be there, but then it's not sufficient on the mental level. Because what happens is, even if we may have some mental experience, we may have some sensorial experiences of pain and pleasure, and painful experiences, for example, I mean, it can be overwhelmed or overcome by the dominant factor of if you have a very calm and happy mind, then the sensorial experiences can be overcome. And so experiences based on these five senses could be overcome by the experiences that we draw, the happiness or happy experiences that we draw on the basis of the mind. And it's not the otherwise, that the mental happiness can be happiness can be overcome by sensorial experiences. So that's the difference that we have from animals.
以及更多的忧虑，这也是随之而来的。那在这个情况下呢，我们可以知道说，人们所拥有的快乐和痛苦的感受，绝非像是动物所拥有的快乐和痛苦感受那么的单纯了。因为人具有这样一个智慧，具有这种的期望，还有忧虑，所以由这种期望和忧虑呢，所带来的另外一种感受层次呢，这是动物不会拥有的。动物们他们可以通过五根去享受了五境，或者我们在此就称为五欲功德啦，就五欲嘛，色声香味触，而获得这个感受是没有错。但是动物们他们会为此而感到满足，他们不会想要更多，因为他们不会想得更远。我们人并不是说不要这一些，我们要的，我们要身体，我们的身体要健康，我们要这些。
근데 이두산에 다 당연 남주들이 해야 되고요. 해지 대별로 동자 숨쉬 나리아 아니 신의 지 최기 타바셔야 돼. 하여래 지 아니 겹지어를 쓰잖아요. 밀리언 암자를 좀 베거돌라 다 겹리야 로데주야지 시즈안에 믿음어서나 즉 초부주의에서 배설시 나 로아싱의 주의에서 배설시 해제 다 로샤스 준 거로다. 자 드리지기 전에 나 최대 아니 중요한 말이 저는 다들 다들은 대별로 배치된 이게 사즈 드레지 참네 생리 딱제시야 데이터네 아니 추제 테크놀로지 야디도 레인드산에 지금 알아서 저자기 지다 류지 강에서야 지 류지다 지 튠진 주야 생각이디 다 추제가 더네 라라오죠 돼야 생리도 추제가 더네 데인드산에 로동라 지 숨쉬진이야 지금 저 말로 되어지 대대야 디레다 생리다 라제 추제가 더네 다다다다 미 동네 세야다 대화줘야지 다 조치 시다 간다 튕긴디고 주용기에 인도산에 다 미즈 대표의 이지로 처로 이지 체제 돼야지 그봐 내는 남주 다과셔야 되게 ngema di Bihar and Jasa Panalia Nangbel Hagan Shambare and di Konji Kudulia Rang Koyamare Nidilaki di Konji Kudulia any Chief Minister and Sung Shenalia Sanje Jomden Degi Tuji Gurdin La Dane and Ngazum Bihar Ngadi Gyonyu Yarjan Rotuagi and the Rawayo Chavre and di Shude Nek Geshach Gesha Nalia and Jumden de Chinlutane and then behind at the Yaja Ruyan, the Gamanaya Rogu Racesley. Right? Ineda, and the Jumden de Chinlugo Yunguyamar, me, Galeke Waris, says our Chief Minister, Jandan Yudengegi, Lapa Jimny, and Jumden de Chinlu Younger Mato, Jumden de Chinlu in my Yamaris, this lady. So that Mizuta Listua, Taco Kanda Kudu, the Otruya, the Dungesia, the Senjitone. 추제가 돈에 용되게 하래. 사들이 이 명문구지 데이터 이지다 라로 숙체체 이 최저가 더 전부지가 더 나중심에 소리지. 또가. 다 들은 이슈에 매되는마. Later part of 20th century. 지기 다 초진에 지기 반적 나다 시라야고 여den에 저 나래 심을 뭐지부지 용돼야지. 심그 뭐지부디 무구탄에 세트야 매대버지. 그러다 근데 추제구탄에 심기부 소트야 매대버지. 근데 인디 신의 심기 뭐지버디 삼루코레탄에 동네서야 지다 대화주야 지 삼루탄에다 삼루동다가 탄에 캬버 첨부 여대버지 통연디 신의 다 삼루콜 토나 사버지래. 난 셰베콜 삼루 토나 사버지래. 대다 첩지 세직에 나네. 지 medical scientist. 다가는 신기 brain the scientist, neuron the zutek. 다 세리부 zutek 신의 지 레베 젤레 로수 직대 지 가소래. third factor 지 예배 소리다. 가다 다 들께서 아니 즉 similar 정다잖아. similar 유어테베 경기 similar 흐르치니 similar 유어테베 경기 레벨 나래 유언도 유대지. 그렇게 통되기도 가. 가다식 삼류 나래 시디잖아. 수구리 판도시아 유대지. 삼류 시비 투되나 수구의 마대 연구 유대지. 다 medical science 타네 다디 통나사바실래. 레벨 심주층에 들어가기 지금 레벨이 구조자지기 third force third factor지 예배 소르지 다 요마르스 루트야 매딩지 즉다 태종만 알려야지도 와 근데 인도산에 세르버즈 나네 지금 낭 셰바사 낭 셈삼다 로 사들이야 신의 토나사바지 레딩지 근데 지금 타네 다 들은 이슈에 매자나냐 신의 지금 칭호부 땅장다 봐 때대야 멤버체니 미 디두 김상기 디두 지조기 디두 난 삼루 시디에 매든 자와도 사지가 도나 서비스 레트도
Therefore, I usually say that in the last 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, the religious belief evolved in human society, and so there has been this belief in God as spirits, in whom people have put their trust and hope, like dealing with them as if they are dealing with some human friends. And then in the last 2 centuries, what has happened is science has developed, and through that technology also developed, and therefore many of the problems, human problems, could be solved through. People have seen that they could be solved through these science and technology easily, and therefore people are able to actually get the results of what they want immediately, and therefore many of the problems could be solved immediately, and therefore people have started putting their trust and belief in science and technology more and more. And so I was once in Bihar. I will tell this story because you have not heard it. Islam is talking to the Chinese interpreter, and so in Bihar, the Bihar state government built Buddhist vihara, Buddhist temple in Patna, the capital city of Bihar, and then during the inauguration ceremony, I was invited there, and so at the ceremony, the Bihar chief minister actually said to me that he wished that the Bihar state would prosper quickly through the blessings of the Buddha. And so then when my turn came to give my talk, I said, if prosperity in Bihar happen through the blessings of the Buddha, then Buddha's blessings has always been there for the last 2,550 plus years. And therefore, the blessing of the Buddha must go through an able chief minister in order to have prosperity in the state. And so that was what I had expressed. And so what I'm trying to say here is that people have become more engrossed in material development, and it's not through prayers that they can come, and because of science and technology, which actually gives the results quickly and immediately, and therefore people have lost faith in religions. And so in the latter part of the 20th century, of course, people have found that the mental unhappiness is not solved by material development alone. Material advancement alone cannot solve our mental problems. And therefore, there has been a new interest in the process of the mind itself. And therefore, there has been this interest in amongst the scientists, medical scientists, neuroscientists. They now begin to think that there is a third factor, not only the brain, but because of change in which there is change in our experiences also. And so there is this mental factor which they believe has some impact on our brain as well. And so they also find that mental happiness, mental peace also adds to our physical health as well. And then now they have come to a point where they are unable to reject this third factor, not only the brain, but there is something which also impacts the mind, the brain. And so in the 20th century, later part of the 20th century, humans have now experienced come to know that our experiences are pleasure and pains could also be based on our mind.
지 천지 야게로야 지 추제 야게로야다 할레비신디야리 디디 야게 디디 심 차다 차고 샹왕을 도스 로데디 아니 추제 야게 침부 천지 야게 침부 추제 십지 야게 침부 디디기 밀 팬도 중요하디 밀 직나게야 배나 두전 선제서로 지금 밀이야 남자 십시야 되는데 다 십지 정도기도 와 ene manju seade mi jizo ngamne yorede yine ko midmin jingri dan rodeaji mado 천정 몸으로 지기 미 추장 몸자 소야성이 되 여말와 더 추제 야게치 천리 야게치니 추제 야게친 배 땡을 때네 다 차당 직벌에디 이내다 차당기 그게 가소래 지사나 천리다 추제 야게친 배디 차당 그 자역소 차이도 전에 또 시우직 제대야. 대단들의 민몽골을 지그나 쉬실래대야. 들이 차대도. 다가는 신그 쿨육 토래 시우직이다. 냠님로대야. 들이 정보로. 그래서 들이 인도산에 들은이 슈버디 남중에 캐바든들이 세세도 들은이 슈버디 나라 미 멍루고 타네 체외 타네 미세버디 미사야 니저스 세요 쓰도와 자자가 들은이 슈버디 할람다 체외 들읍 슬럽초가 소리지 미세 착적이 들읍에서 럽투야 소리지래자 자다 들으시기 차와 제니 다 할 레벨다 체외 가서 그래 탑시 될 때네 전물인디 원에 지기다 전물이 끼우치 전물인디 시드마로 침버지기 종연하다 다 더스지기다 차와 중벌이 이내다 차와 되게 좀전 상부 충투를 러투르데 과메도가 자들이 인도산에 다 들은 니슈 적지버디 딘제기다 차와 매버지기 멍주 딘제기다 차와 매버지기 원에 지기다 미군 자신 틈버지기다 영향이 용토지야나 다 딘제지 간주 배주셔 가지고 그래도가 그라 디 세리다 취재가 타네 미투부 써야 돼 미세케미도가 다 미투부 써야 돼 가르쳐오는 난 삼년 안에 자제 써야 돼 자제 뒤에 대긴 이슈다 돼 나라서 동주 든주지 상월로 미치버이 나 동에면도 대한데 버리 코에 동에면도 대한데 버리 사버지기 간다다 나라서 저물리기 미 영조로 나조 써야지 나조 좋아 뮤직 써야지 샤슈나 애는 뭐네 지기지기 벽에다 세워쳐야다 지기지기야 차도쳐야게 애는 시스템도 봐 바로 뭐 미지부인도 바로 뭐 대화중은 소소셈 기워야지 그래서 내가 델리버리 호와이 유버즈 지식이 your blood my blood your blood is my blood 계란게 깡 그봐 모르는 사람을 모르는 사가지 메로
본 메로
깡마 메로 봐 계란게 메로디 네 메로리스 다 식디 파도스 자로 제베이나 계란게 둥에디 네 둥에리 계란게 대화디 네 대화를 사지 디 미치규 두시코던 리그로 같이 출루 계속해 출루的 지 지속이 배 제림 담에 계속하게 말이지 미치거리사 그거간에 상대 리그도 와 그래서 딩아도 다 상당고도 미 통주 줄 하죠 어디 상으로 아주 미치거리 삼바지 상으로 대충보이는 아니 차와용 말와 배지 차도 용하면도 와 딘지지기 타네 애닝만에 지 시리용야지 지속 원래 디기 되어줘야겠다 저와디 다 디가니 제주를 마도 사이언스다 취재지고 타네 시리용하게 다 개는 치토하면 되고 무역 타네 시리용 돼야게 개는 치토하면 되고 다 시리용하게 탑시 가르쳐 오시면 난 삼류 미사마 직규근 두시디샤네 애니 지기 자와서야디 쇼우지 계속 쳐도
从另外一个角度来去看待20世纪的时候，我们也可以发现到说，虽然无论是科技或者是科学它的一个进展的速度之快，但是这不代表说它给人类带来完全是正面的一个影响。
So in the 20th century, the science and technology have highly developed and advanced, but these are not used for these are used. I mean, what we have used these for is destructive purposes through and building up nuclear weapons and so forth, which increases fear in human beings. And so, of course, war and battles have been fought since ancient times, but due to science and technology, the power of destruction is much more greater, and therefore there's mass destruction, mass killing, and also great fear is developed in human beings. And the nuclear weapons and so forth give great fear in human beings. And then there's so much environmental destruction as well. And so some historians even say that in the 20th century, 200 million people have been killed through wars and battles. And therefore, we can say that the 20th century was a century of violence and century of bloodshed. And so if, of course, having caused this bloodshed and violence, if it is justified by bringing more happiness in human society, then of course it may be okay. It may have been okay, but that's not what has happened. And so if non-violence and harmony amongst human beings could be developed, should be developed, then it could be developed only through love and compassion. So we should have this feeling of human beings as one family, calling ourselves we human beings rather than making divisions amongst ourselves. And so peace and non-violence and harmony in the human society can be developed if we can have this human feeling, brotherhood and sisterhood. In Hawaii, I visited this year, and they have this saying, your blood is my blood and your marrow is my marrow. And so we can use this saying to understand that we are all same in terms of being, saying that your suffering is my suffering, so we can have this empathy amongst human beings. And so we should develop this understanding that we are all same as being humans, and therefore if we can have this sense of being humans, same human beings, then of course there's no room for developing jealousy, and then through that of course we can also develop world peace, which spreads from individuals to the society and so forth. And so what we can see from our experience so far is that science and technology alone are no guarantee to bringing about human peace in the world, peace amongst human beings and non-violence. And so what is important for us to know is that love and compassion are crucial to bring about peace and harmony in the world. So this is very important to understand.
所以光是透过，我再强调一次，光是透过 science 科学，或者是机器，那甚至于财经或者是经济等等，这没有办法跟世界的和平划等号。世界的和平最主要是来自于内心，或者大家一个共识的一种认知。
小张哥，但米制作拿到里啊，不给되게 인수돼야 돼. 밀이야 참지해야 돼. 랑체수여체. 차당 랑체수여체. 다 랑체수여 대베 간다지 똑바로 잡면 되나네. 배나 치응어보 랑체수여 대베 찍了. 디 심주체네. 제 되던디 아주 룰 팽기도스. 제 되던디 룰 누구도스. 심주체네. 제 이상로 여러보다. 랑체수 여러보다. 다 이내 아주 미 심주체네. 디 펜베 랑시를 샤스 디 다오게. 디 뇌베 랑시를 샤스네. 디파 샤. 라. 지워라. 디는시 낭 삼류 때문에 똑바로 잡면 제 겜베 차단 걸로로 깨인도 심 투되지. 심 뭐시고 치도가. 봐. ben tundu ben kirujil 대비네. 그 차단 잡고 깨베 그 돌이야. 왜 기더 남주베 시디로 여된 거 거의 배 투되기도 와. 다 집어로 밀리 집어로. 남주 미하고 싶으시베네. 그 차단 잡고 깨베 그 돌이야. 미리 남주도 맨다 차되기도 하다. 자, 이제 인도산에 심 주요베 대상은 좀 정말 현실로. 그래서 배랑 가서 뭐 진다 롱라 유미 기더 심도 신경 요소 수도 와. 是吧?是吧? 시민다 기장고리도 더 아주 빨라 더 트레이드 샷을 기도 퍼스트와 대대서 용득도 사실이 이르산에 야 들이 인도 에네 사실이 인도 에네 그래서 다들이 인도 간다 심 주겐디 다 가르치기도 다 참바다 자와스 레인도잖아요. 人性的它这个绕不差，这个也不差，那么这个落后永远多， 자, 디 인도산에 아니 코라 김상진이 대신 기와 파배야. 강사 개그 소설을 차시하네. 지금 자지 로지 참지 로지 여기 있나? 그걸로 별로 차대야지. 그 요하도. 그래서 다들 인도 치응업을 딱지체네. 판단 넣어 가려면 딱지체네. 아주 놀란 시기요. 난시 난 시외 나네. 똑바 담에다 나네. 너바 영에 심 주겐기 똑바지 칼칼도 와. 심리야 지 시들 중행이 로칼칼도 와. 다 띵안 주 시행과야 돼 계속 살아서. 的确现你给定我的这个马嘞，缺少他的是不是呢？哎，你是大家去差不的，当然说人民用球也对不？先用个老鼠这样哪里啊？到底这个多啊？的确给这个马吧？定然说这个告诉我的，确定个他来的那个啊的，人们那个没记录的几样子，谈到到底我就去搞了，那这里印度。안다 간조 여대 열심히 education systems 도와 the materialistic oriented education도 와 자다 아주 더럽 디가라 다시네 education 도단 education universal로 보다 자상가 춘주간에서는 롭종 제도기 롭종 디나라 다 칭무부 관리야 롭종 체버 칭무부도 제외 간다지 롭전디리 개심부 시라라 대상로 마샤브셰 다 낭 삼류 로단디리 그 에카데믹 ranchene knowledge 나 치매게 시기야 말이 군주게 시기야 말이 그걸 미즈다가 지금 미심 기부줘야지다 김장 대보줘야다 지도 대보줘야 된다리야 심 로단디 다 롭스나리야 레고야지 the academic ranchene purely academic way not religious just one so that chance is 통해요 탭 사업이 그냥 더 뒤동안 가서 주 beyond religion 사지 누가 랑 통해요 봐 통해요 더 제이트 텐샤 태연의 발전 텐샤 저서 어다 내는 유 디스코레 secular ethics secular ethic and secular ethic 해야 돼 secular 가서다 secular education 디 나라 and secular ethic 디 나라 레버치고 도스 다디 아주 미지 임베 차네 르버 대가네 다한테 계셔야돼 디체 다 가다 가서 가르쳐 해 주도 없으나 내가도 사mol로기 소수 된다래라 소수 랭겐 차디요래 즉 세쿨러 에틱도 이야기해야지 진짜 저한테 들을 때 러야돼 저한테 위 깨져서 좋아래 미 깨져 메는 거래 즉 삼는 안티 샤체 아니 미 깨져 르르르 야 소수 초보 야 르르 초보 주스를 반 저하시 중 저하 용토래 디시자네 미개동을 저래송아 야 미개동에 도스와 저잖아 미치개가 안 되더라 저다 된가서 대 결이주래 다가는 신기대 유두시다는 영어대 자주 미수이네 아주 배버지네 수두수이네 강당 아주 지 여러 사 다디 최께지고 말이 강다 미스다가 기우여야 다 되나 차용 힌두자네 아다디 상로로 장체 상도로 지사지 다들 못한 거지
在人类的社会里面，我们可以知道说，人类有一个善良的一个天性。
So in human society, we know that we have this love and compassion which is natural to us in our nature, and also desire and anger is innate in us. And therefore, what we have to try to know is just as we do some investigation in matter, like chemicals, what kind of chemicals are beneficial to us and what kind of chemicals are harmful to us, and then accordingly we make the choice of not taking those which are harmful but taking those which are beneficial. Likewise, we also have to know what kind of mental states are disturbing our mind, disturbing our mental peace of mind, and so such as attachment and anger. Even the dogs, of course, are aware of such these. When we can see in dogs, like when they are overcome with anger or attachment, they go through lots of problems, and then
就是非常直截了当的，我们可以知道说谁升起了
Even
谁升起了尘。
we can see in people that even somebody may be very peaceful usually, but when they are overcome with anger and attachment, then they change their mood. They change and they become rather violent, and so. And we can even see in dogs and the dogs and cats, which are kept as pets by people, reacting to their masters. When the master, the father of the family, is rather angry on a day, then even their pets, like dogs and cats, avoid them. And so they even know, they know what is disturbing to them. And so we have to know what is disturbing to us and what is not disturbing to our mind. So love and compassion, when we have love and compassion, what happens is these attitudes bring people together, and therefore there is no harm. And when you have love and compassion, there's no way you can harm somebody. And therefore, once you are peaceful with love and compassion, then there's peace and harmony in the family, and which in turn extends to society and so forth. And so even as individuals, you are happy. And so we have to know what kinds of thoughts are destructive to us and disturbing to us, what brings happiness to us. We have to be able to differentiate between these thought processes that are going on in our mind. And so here we do not need to talk about religion as such, but we are talking about bringing about mental peace as an academic subject. And so in our educational systems, the modern educational system, that is the conventional education system, is more or less materially oriented. And so, of course, we need education. Education is something which is universal, but we must, when we impart education to our people, we must not limit ourselves to materially oriented approach of education, but we also have to include how to develop a peaceful mind, compassionate mind, purely as academic subjects. And so I have written, as you know, I have written this book recently, Beyond Religion and Ethics for the Whole World, which is now translated into Chinese. And so in it, what I deal with is secular ethics. And so secular ethics, what I'm talking here about, bringing about peace and love and compassion through love and compassion, is purely from the point of view of secular ethics. So we must include secular ethics in our secular education systems. And so as humans, of course, we should know that this kind of secular ethics of valuing love and compassion and bringing about peace in society is something which is helpful to us. And we have the responsibility to bring about happiness in our society as well. So, so by reading these books, Beyond Ethics, and no, and so having. And so we have the responsibility on our society, and therefore, if you can spread this message about secular ethics, you here 800 of you, the Taiwanese people have come, and Chinese people have come, and if you can spread this message to 10 people each, if each of the 800 can spread the message to 10 persons each, then we can have 8,000 people, and those 8,000 can in turn multiply that to 80,000 and so forth. So in this way, we can bring about some peace and in our mind, peace in the world. So whether you are Chinese or Tibetans, moral ethics is something which need, and we do not need only to confine to religious message as such.
더 상당한 사기 자와 투서디 나라줄 패버지나 디상부체 네버지나 띵냐버체 가르슬나 대화디 되버리 등에디 면접이 뭐 디실샤베 토는 상당히 계시고
我们现在谈到所谓的
So we're talking about things that are good or bad. There's something which is good to us. As of course, we not touch on religion as such, but something which is helpful to us, useful to us, is considered as regarded as good. But something that is harmful, that is bad, is considered as bad. And so happiness is something that we want and which is good to us, and suffering is something which we don't want and which is bad.
造成我们痛苦的话，这个叫做恶。我善恶的定义是界定于在跟自己的一个离苦得乐有关的一个情况下，我来去定义善恶这两个字。
그래서 천리의 이식도와 천리의 개발도 제게 심지어도 자연도 fear, constant fear, and hatred, anger 전부 있나? 아주 immune system이 숙성주어리스. 샘플러 지금 샘 시디에 있나? immune system이 그 무튼 대퇴하다 그리 숙처로 돼야지 식도가. 다가는 시간에 양 사이언티스트가 아티클 티셔 중에 통소 미적진 시라시행의 sem날 more stress 요리스. 디제로다. 디적진 시에도 sem날 그 가다 소소다디 디적진 시에도 소소 시행도 있잖아요. 어다 디적진디 그두고 로요 삼니 sem날 다스 마다인 거로. 그래서 디디 인도 people who tell more lies, more stress. 디 최근 좀 말다. The scientific foundation 거다.
而且，就是透过科学上
So even scientists also today say that constant fear and anger, these negative emotions, actually weaken our immune system, whereas peace of mind actually strengthens our immune system. And I also saw an article written by a scientist which says that people who tell lies often have more stress in them, and this is true because if you tell lie to people, then you would always have to feel guilty and always fear when this lie could be maybe exposed to others. Someone or others would find that you have lied. So because of that, of course, you will always have stress.
我想这个应该也是也算是符合逻辑啦，因为就只有他自己知道说他在撒谎嘛。 所以他很担心说这个说谎什么时候会被戳破，这个谎言什么时候会被戳破，他很担心会被戳破的那一天嘛，所以他内心一直有压力，所以谁撒的谎最多，谁内心的压力就最大。
这个长过长下，这个가서 우리 벽에 치세낭세, 뭐가 매우 재미있나? 이 최근 계시게 되면 도와. 그 소소 수고 대야, 다 미스기 ဝင်거로. 엔 저번망이 거로. 자, 자샤오시오시. 长不长相嘛，是不是？有就是在位呢，超过是搞这个人呢，但没得太怎么说，并且呢，他们并且是因为呢，这个人是在些，一嘛去别的，那么都是在位呢，所以长没就不吃了，长没就不吃用的 loneliness brings depression， 对吧？
所以。
So it's important to practice honesty and be transparent and truthful in your dealings with other people. Because when you deal with other people with honesty, transparency, and truthfulness, then of course it helps your physical health as well, and you also gain more friends. But on the other hand, contrary to that, if you always are dishonest and not transparent to people and always telling lie, then deceiving others, then how can you actually have friends? Even those members of your family would be pushed aside. And then what will happen is you lose friends and family members, and then what happens is you remain lonely. And loneliness gives rise to depression as well.
没有办法，连自己的家人都会不相信自己，都被自己家人所唾弃了，更何况是其他的人。 所以一直撒谎的人，他最后呢会变成真正的一个人，很孤单的一个人。这种孤独的感受会带来什么沮丧的感受？
자상가 다 아등이 어디 되게 하듯 디 beyond religion 시대디 디 민시디 야 내 다시 말다 publisher 민도 다버리 ngā tāsi yāngā sēs, tā bēyāng rī lī jī chē lī lāgā sū sū rī. Dī kua mā rī, dī chē tā māndir chīn, tā shē tī kī wā rī. Yīnē, shē tē bē chē chē dī chē tsāma lō kī nīmbū chā tī wā rī. Chē tsāma lō kī, tā dī shī rī shā bē tō rā, yīnī tā rū tī lē yīng kī wā rī bā. Chī tā kāndā mī chū sāmbū dī, tā chū rū tsāma lō dī ngō lēn chē nī. 다 대 야제 또야 된다래. 애는 라랑 게 떠주면다 되는 거야 봐. 저자 줄로 삼으러 심어리 신을 놓쳐 시. 저자 줄로 삼으러 게 샴지 두비에 그렇지. 인주디. 다다 줄 삼으러 시즈 미 상주디 실샤베 토라. 디 야제 또야 차掉了.
那至于这本超越宗教的书名呢，这个不是我取的。
So the title Beyond Religion that is given on the book, my book, was actually a choice of publishers and not myself. And so when I saw the title, I was a little bit concerned because it could give the idea to people that, there's something greater than religion, but that's not the meaning at all. But what I'm trying to say, deal with is the principles that are actually found in all the essential messages of all the religious traditions in terms of moral ethics. And so developing moral ethics, which is basic to all religions. And but I'm trying to present these essential messages of the religions in its way that with an approach that doesn't touch any religion as such. And so I'm trying to approach it from a secular viewpoint. And so, of course, all the religions try to develop good human beings, good moral people with morality and all this. And so this is the message that I'm trying to give. And so it's like I'm actually helping all the religions, making my contribution to the religious traditions as well.
由800个人传到8000人，由8000人传到8万人，那这样的话呢，才有办法影响到无论是自己的家庭，更能够影响到自己的整個社會，還有自己的國家。那這樣的話，才有辦法真正帶來社會和國家之間的一個和平。那不只是在場的華人，還有在此的西方朋友，我也希望你們能夠跟大家傳授或傳遞這樣一個訊息。對不起，我剛剛忘記看這一段。
자 잠깐, 미 참지 싸워 샤샤베. 지 여러 다 잡아 상부해야 돼. 디 야구 여바이나? 에? 최기 떠두디 디 야제 동안 가라. 킬셔버 주나? 출루를 때문에 차단 패지 말해. 고소와. 신 들께서 내가 네가 세르고 지글럼요. 아르헨티나를 가서 총두직 살이야. 칠리엔 세르고 지. 공개 있는 그런 quantum physicist. 저는 그런 게 있는 거 있는 quantum physicist. 얘네 그런 게 있는 quantum physicist 라자 그런 게 attachment 전득 windows. the attachment 제비나 아니 경용도 있잖아. 그 딜러리. 근데 뭐는 선택 버리죠. 저서 내 눈이 따고 되시대요. 난 남과래스. 이래된 남과처럼 attachment 지켜 말이스. 가래스는 로수를 내버려야 돼. 하장 개심도가 attachment는 로초스로 봐. 소순 대배왕 달라 차 현재 차 이런데 로초스로 봐. 로초스로는 로수를 내버 말. 로수를 내버면은 objectivity 통통 말 봐. 저서 순에 로된 되냐와 예분의 시차를 시했으니 오늘 쉽게만 나서 송야다 되리. 저 뒤에 인도산에 로수를 내버서 대셔 개심도가. 저서 왔다 로수를 내서 쌤 차단가 봐도 마소나 로수를 내버 연구를 봐. 저서가 안데디 secular ethics야디 예배이나 디 시즈 예배이나 출루디에 팬배를 신도야지. 신 가서스네 출루기에 텐지치 하지 않아 로데기도 가. 저지네. 애니 니네 야 소소 맞잖아. 최근에 헤보크리스 러구도 가. 지금 돈도로지 거로지 돈도로 제대하지 러구도 가. 봐. 다디 미마비 소도 가. 그래서 배랑 같이 하시는 소소 맞잖아. 취갈 때 미즈베서 아주 쉬우려서 나도 쉬우지 버렸어네. 애니 소소 아게게야. 애니 밀리아 지 가서 우리 벽이 애니 디 유지자 들리고도 가. 저 들리인도 그 secular ethics야디 담보 주어봐이나 아니 먼저하네 최네 샤샤베 떠주디디 딘데기다 상부연들이 코네 콘도 배야라 따당도 돼야지 되면은 최디에 차당 배주체 아니 소소 게르샤샤네 가사주고 직전 처리하겠다 샴딜을 줘야 책으로
所以以这种悲悯心为根本的一个就是普及化的，能够普及化的这种道德观念呢，我觉得我们一定要。
And therefore, love and compassion as the basis for moral ethics is needed. And if we could, of course, carry out our dealings with love and compassion as the basis for our moral ethics, then, of course, there's going to be no violence in the world. And for that, of course, we must not develop attachment to religions as such. And so I met once a Chilean physicist, a quantum physicist, who said that as a physician, a quantum physicist, he must not have attachment to his own field of knowledge, research. Because that actually causes him to have biased attitudes. And so once you bias, then you cannot be objective. And so that was a lesson for me as a Buddhist. And so if you say, I'm a Buddhist, and then you develop attachment to your own religion, then you cannot be unbiased. Because of that, you cannot be objective in your approach in dealing with the religions and so forth. And so once you are biased, then you cannot be objective. So you should be unbiased, and therefore you should not develop attachment to your religion, because this helps you to be objective and about the other religious faiths, other traditions as well. And so as Aryadeva says in his 400 verses, a receptive student is someone who is unbiased, who is intelligent, and who pursues his goal. And so without attachment, you should pursue your goal. And so if you develop this secular ethics within yourself, it will be a basis for developing further in your religious practices as well. And so otherwise, what happens is without this basic secular ethics, even religion can be a means to teach you hypocrisy. And because you are attached to your own religion, you cannot be unbiased. And because of that, a lot of problems also happen. And so hypocrisy, sometimes there's, as religious practitioners, if you are not based on this basic secular ethics, then you could also, there's danger of becoming hypocritic. And so religion can become a means to develop hypocrisy as well. For example, in my case, if I'm not careful, sitting on a high throne, I could develop conceit and deceit within myself, and that in turn helps me to, which in turn makes me hypocritical. And so in order to be if you have moral ethics based on this secular ethics, then of course this on top of that you can also do your religious practices, and also otherwise what can happen is if you are not based on moral ethics, based on this secular ethics, then you could also be indulge in what are known as the 8 worldly concerns.
这样的话呢，才有办法使自己的教义呢，就是才有办法让它增长，才有办法让它增上。
大家呢，大家那个说，民被人不抵抗呢，给写的起来。다 human value 세대가 있는 human value. 다 대, 아주 지규화 말에, 대 능주 지규화 말에, 대 개수부 싶쓰고 그래. 최연의 매내리 디 개수부 쓰고 하지 개수부를 셔. 다디 신용은 알다 루트야 지금 아주 야가 나는다. 지금 내가 지되게 돼. Some professors of Delhi University and also some scientists. Now we already carrying some sort of program how to introduce in modern education system about these secular ethics.
把它稱為叫做
So this is about human values that we should develop, and we should not forget this, and also should not disregard these human values. And so we are, of course, trying to develop a program for academic universities in Delhi University in Delhi, in India, and also professors abroad are working on introducing this secular ethics in a modern educational system as well. So we are developing a curriculum for that.
或者宗教信仰的一个诠释也没有关系的。
呀，但是不你不的，当我做什么老定的呀？但告诉我这个青俄在亚界咱们个连国看的没对吧？什么亚界个的同样情况什么亚界当的的 secular ethic 来大家改呢？ 다 출루 떠루 개랑이지. 是吧? 但是不抵抗的下引的.
那接下来我们就晋升到第二层次。
And so that was about the first level on the human values, secular ethics. Now on the second level, we must not be lost in the material developments alone for the mental transformation, but we should think of mental transformation going beyond the secular ethics and basing ourselves on the philosophical understanding of our religious tradition as well. So we'll deal with this now.
大抵那里대세로 니체. 지금 거부 되게 출루. 당연히 떠주 예배 출루직. 떠주 매경 출루직. 떠주 매경 출루직 내가 체크해야 말. 떠주 예경 출루 나라. 얘는 지금 거부 되게 출루직. 지금 거부 민중경 출루직 니체. 다 지금 거부 민중경 출루 나래. 얘는 가시고 보게 교환 것이 되게한다. 민중의 배신 니소 사쇼만도 성기. 제네다 어떤 게 마직 로스 러베이나 다 지금 저번에 대가 그 출루 쫓아가 다 이슈체 가지체 아니 주체 라스속에다 출루 디디 지도가 보고 싸울 샤베 다 최대 차대요래 되네 모두가 중에 나올래 야 지금 지도가 보고 상배 제발해서 되게 지도가 보고 되게 되서 직시 다 지도가 보고 민중에디 아니 장전 살제 삼에 니시 셰베 난기 장전 삼에부터 직시 되네 지부부체 되네 상지베 셰셰 디디 지도가 보고 민중에디 어다 대전도시
And so within the religious traditions, of course, there are those religious traditions which have no philosophical background as such, but there are those which have some philosophical background to them. And so within those with philosophical background, of course, we can have two groups, the theistic and non-theistic religious traditions. And within the theistic religious traditions, there are those who do not believe in reincarnation, and there are those who believe in reincarnation as well. So within this group, this first group, the theistic religions group, we have Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and then some parts of Hinduism or non-Buddhist traditions. And then we who claim that there is Brahma is the creator of the universe. And then within the non-theistic religious traditions, we have one part of Sankhya school, and then Jainism and Buddhism.
这以上呢，就是我刚刚所说的，在他们的宗教教义里面，相信有造物主的这一派的宗教信仰哈。那另一派的宗教信仰，它是不相信有造物主的存在的。那这一派来讲的话，大致上是分三者嘛。第一个叫做数论无余派，数论派又可以分，数论派又可以分有余、无余两者。那在此指的是无余的数论派哈。那第二个呢是赤我派啊。那第三者呢就是佛教徒， 這三者，這是屬於没有造物主的，认为说否定造物主的存在的这种宗教信仰。
저서 지금 거 되게 다 치료지 참을로 떠주 매자래데 참을로게다 참바다 자와 엔 대단제다 서바 초시 치료 참을로다 럽전할 때도가 디냠네 층에 차대어 봐 정말 라랑 그 치료디 삼바 남다게 라링게리나 땅 아주 통지를 해야 돼 지 이슈 최변나리 있는다 가지 최변나리 있는다 대다 된다게 취규 드즈나리아 원하라 지속의 샴디 중에 메리아 팬들 중에 역사도 와 저상가 딘디 인도 참바다 자와 메시지디 다 주로 참으로 집어내셔 다디네 감사한다 다 떠주부터네 애는 안 되시면 다 보나 신기다 먼저 해야 되지 자 다디네 인도 처직네 추규지 사물로 밀로 거고 여대베다 되게 세쿨러 에틱시아 대학이 잠바다 자와도 서바다 디디니 야 빼야 럽지 직규 인도잖아 디ቷ네 아주 냠린 투모 지겨버체 다디네 떠주면 나와지 차 지된 거 보고 요리 지된 거 보고 요 말이사 근데 그 떠주면 나와지 거 요리디 이네 떠주디 디기 미유디 셔바라나 소스 지 냠린디디 공내 공도 빼야리야 다 그게 그래서 잡는 층이지 맨나 나도 삼월로 군조 꺼버리스 지금 거 보고 딱 바로 중기 끼고 된듯이 샤니 다대 나도 삼월로 꺼버리스 시드자네 나도 신이 되는 날이야 라왕 토네 샤왕 라메 소수 동아 세중동아 딘라오지 나 세하게 배 소수 시우지게 배지 초든 제야로 리바 숙충다니 가다 탐제배 또 군족이 다 꺼버리 사지 랑게 룡아 이수는데 군족 꺼버리 사차인도 자네 배 군족을 배 제집에 지르거버 군족을 이 제집에 대바 차인도 자네 고나 세하고 숙충도다 다디 출루 상만하네 배가 세네배 난지 랑다배 보다 가도 런이 총지로 되기 레베이나 견유되지 순고로 다디 견 시드블이야 결합하게 요 말이 지득거버 거버스 직체 다 니네 지성게 지득거버 볼이야 지 대바 숙청부체네 제직배 대바체네 배 삼다 니부여버 대적이 군족이 깔이야 냐야 그러다 배 가족을 그 군족가 출신도 주야라 그 판도용으로 다 군족가 가려서는 야레게 투주 시스템도 군족가디 참적검 상월월이야 tum부치사지 수보검사에 순고로다 다들이 인도산에 다원면자가 디디 거든디 집어봐 그래서 처진의 참지하겠다 처진의 나오냐베베 지금 다 가서래 다도 다와서래 탐보고 숙충다 지금 다드네 다원면자가 디디 점을디가라 용국이야래 가르슬람나 유룽 담면자라 다 들음 담면자 나라 유룽 소소 나라라 지다 kumshi menra yunguri chi cultural heritage sorveda culture dindigi ta rodar menra yungyari dindi indu zane kamdam meba naso yeba yindu 대다 사바지기 더루 menraadi 고야지 berna 사제 점된데 코랑기 두제나라 kamdam meba menra yeba yindu zane 아니 태고숨 사라고 좀더 시사로 어다 드즈테디 용되게 알아. 좀 전에 코랑기 가서 그래. 네네 백가디 그냥 사말로 어디 매바 적을 숨기도 와. 뒤제 감도 뛰니 아니 변어 더루이네리 다가는 신급에 삼바이네 자치 중 삼바 자치로 주제 그래 감도 뛰니 숨기도 와. 저자 어디 벨라네 나도 저분이 뒤가라 철 대바칭에 미 통주몽구 예배 나리야 소소소 감도 매바도 참니 떠주면 저디 고기도 저 삽샤르샤. 자 도스 삼다베이나 출루 상월로리야 그거치야지. 그다 따땡원에 야오래 밀 팽겨야래 야오래 사무직 sem리야 당화돼야지 요것도가. 이지사도 소수세한테 변한 남바랑 차시하네. 변한 가서 망체 고불루르고 지나치니 우마베 따와 캐는 게 아래. 우마베 따와 캐는 지기 아니 저라마 따와 마셔야잖아요. 거기 배선 날이야. 이 이지도 지금 말이 있네. 좀 된데 그 가래. 야, 그래서 세대로다. 그래서 소수 이지자되다. 대글자 그거 제한이 그냥 가가래서. 저들이 있는데 아다 디펠라네 아주 점물이가 그 추규 담으려 되게 소소수 추규대 대바체 이내 추루시다 일이 알야 그거체 도도도 전다 가다 가서 추루 튼디사도 쉬우지 가서 버리셔 뭐뭐 이야기 지고기 당그 말에 나 삼로 참지 거래서는 숭행이 추루 거나 차단간 집에는 아니 배탑적으로다 그래서 다디 영야디 안서 삼루야고 시다나 아니 뭐냐는 추루 삼월로야 그벌래야 찍다 디ቷ네 아니 삼월로 첨도야 삼월로 투부야지 용구로와 다디양 아주 최대 영해주의 믹스의 랭귀지 차대요다
虽然在宗教的教义上有不同的一个诠释，不同的一个说法，可是呢，我们不要忘记这种不同的说法的最主要的根本是来自于，因为他们都是相同的，都是要宣传一个理念，那就是爱、关怀。
So all these philosophical differences. Of course, there are these philosophical differences among the religions, but all of them teach the same message, have the same message of practice of love, compassion, tolerance, contentment, self-discipline, and all this. And so, a sincere practitioner of any religion, Christianity or Islam, of course, for example, you can see them really serving human society very much. And so, therefore, the message of love and compassion are all same and common to all religious traditions. And there is, of course, the philosophical differences, but the secular ethics, of course, with secular ethics, what we teach is the secular ethics, which is based on love and compassion, is something which is a common practice to all religious traditions. And so there may be, of course, the differences in terms of philosophy. Some believe in God, a creator, and others do not believe in such a creator God. And so, of course, there is this difference between the theistic and non-theistic religions, but they are all health and God, they should help to support ourselves to have to develop the practice of love and compassion. And so, just as we find in the Lamrim Chenmo, when one actually has to give in oneself to someone else, which is referring to a lama, and so those who believe in a creator God single-pointedly, when they have such a single-pointed strong belief, what happens is they actually are able to reduce their selfish arrogance, the extreme self-centered arrogance within themselves. And so thinking that they are actually nothing but creation of God, a creature of a God, helps them to actually counter their self-centered arrogance. And so also this gives a very close feeling to the creator God. And so the purpose of all these religions is the same, in that it increases this feeling of the practice of love and compassion, and reducing the sense of this self-centered, selfish arrogance. And so when the theistic religious practitioners carry out their practices, of course, thinking that they are creation of God and they are nothing, then they are here to serve the God's will, and that's what they do. And so they develop friendship and love towards others. And so we can see in terms of geographical divisions in the world, of course, we have different places in which different people are born, and then according to their culture and the backgrounds, I mean, they have their various mental predispositions, and therefore the different religious traditions are also necessary because of these different predispositions that people have according to their geographical divisions, places. And so even within the disciples of the Buddha, amongst the disciples of the Buddha, the Buddha actually acknowledged that there are differences in their predispositions, and accordingly he gave different teachings to different disciples. And so some have the attitude where they can actually practice the Mahayana, or with this great attitude of bodhicitta and all this. Others have not been given this teaching, and so Buddha has also respected this difference amongst his own disciples. And therefore we have, of course, all these billions of people who follow the religious traditions, the different religious traditions, and therefore they help them, and they have been helpful to human society for so long, and therefore we must also develop respect in the different religious traditions while keeping faith in one's own religion. So we have to be able to make this distinction between faith and respect. So faith is kept in one's own religion, whereas you can respect other religious traditions. Just as, well, of course, we say that we are followers of Nagarjuna, the great master Nagarjuna, and accordingly, the certain philosophical thesis of like Vaibhashika system may be rejected by us. But when we study them, of course, we study them to learn about what the Vaibhashika position is. But then we do not hold that position as our own philosophical position, whereas we subscribe to Nagarjuna's philosophical position. But we should still respect the Vaibhashikas and other traditions. And so it is very important in today's world to have religious harmony. So, of course, if religion is used to create bigotry, to create disharmony amongst people, then it is very sad. So what we must try to do is try to respect all religious traditions. So as religious practitioners, we also have the responsibility to create harmony amongst religions and in the world. And amongst Buddhists, we also make this division between we and they, and our followers of this religion, that religion, and even amongst Tibetans, we have this kind of attitude. And so So as religious practitioners, followers of the religion, what our responsibility is to create religious harmony, to bring harmony amongst the religious traditions. Now we are going to go through the teaching of the Buddha. So do you have this calm that you have come here to listen to Buddhist teaching and not to listen to all these kind of different talks?
지된 거법은 민중의 추기디디기 교다 데뷔 지 땡진 저번 중 된지 캐라면 소치리. 그다 law of causality. 즉 central 즉 authority를 즉 creator 맵체. 상월로. 그래서 다윈의 테오리도 잡으라고 시. 상월도 두드 얘기하는데도 누구도 되게 알았어. 자 다디난 디디기 지다에네 균직 던지셔야 돼. 던지 켜라고 소리지. 이내 다 디 가서 장신바다 디 지금 니가 로기 던지기 아니 균제 답변은 제법 다 제법보다 지금 제부 영어보스 러윤이잖아요. 덕지랑 다 산시도가 다 디던지도 좀 시도 말아. 강다 다스야 돼 풍불로 떼는 중에 계시도 말이지. 풍불로 왕 중에기 풍불로 된 셴베다 덕지랑 셴고요. 자상가 그 균제기 던지 삼지도 캘는 거 열대 이내 그 균제기 던중서야 돼 다다나 배신 중에 수시도. 다 사제베 최기 처진에 지대 꺼보지 맵체 디두 롱 접어보디 부모가를 때네 딱 잠시에 마도 풍불로 왕경내기 덕지랑 다요 말이스 전들이 인도산에 사제베 최기 다와디 댄지저번 중앙사 디차디어레 또 마와 시갈로 다 댄중 다와서디 캬르디어레 디 댄중도 균제기 댄중레 죄송 다데네 다 댄지 저번 중앙 인도 대화도 동해서야 돼 규도 깨를 되는 중앙레스 자 다들 인도 규인 내가를 샹을 동해야지 샹을 믿어야지 연구도는 딘 제부디라는 믿어 연구레스 봐 샹은 뇌베지 샹은 뇌서야 돼 샹을 동해야지 된대기네 자외 직되기 제부 동해 연구야레스 규도 주변 내가를 샹을 야지 이대와야지 심기우야 거기 영야지 된대기다 자와지베이나 딘제부디 라리야 디기 연구레스 자 디리 인도산에 균제기 땡중 계지디 셴니 다 런이 동에 메도버도 대화되베 인도 샹라 판다 샹라 나바마치 세야기 다 판다들 럽라 샹라 판다 개데 판다 모두네 샹라 나바마치 시다다디 다 처음에 들어서 저서 다와 땡중로 때네 저바 처음에 봤어야 다디 다 낭배 중이 못들으셔
佛教呢强调了两个很大的一个原则那就是缘起见不害心。
So, with regard to Buddhism, the view of Buddhism is, as I usually say, dependent origination, and the conduct or the practice is, the ethical practice is that of non-violence. And so, of course, all the non-theistic religions seem to believe in some law of causality, which is to say that they have no belief in a creator God, which is like a central authority, a creator. So it's like the Darwinian theory of evolution. So there is this causes and conditions giving rise to their effects. And so this is the general idea that we have of all the non-theistic religions. But then within the non-theistic religions, we have Samkhya, the non-theistic Sankhya, and Jainism, which on the one hand seem to believe in a law of causality, but then when they talk about an experiencer of happiness and suffering, they believe in some sort of a principle of soul or Atma. And so from that point of view, it seems that they are not able to posit or assert the law, the dependent origination fully, while believing in a law of causality. And so, with regard to Buddhism, of course, there's no theory of soul in Buddhism, a soul or an Atma, which is permanent, single, and autonomous. And all the Buddhist traditions for philosophical schools of Buddhism, within Buddhism, believe, of course, in law of causality. And so what that means is that happiness and suffering are brought about by their causes and conditions. And so, if you act in a way that actually causes suffering to others, then as a consequence of that, you also go through an experience, unwanted experience. And on the other hand, if you do some actions which brings about happiness in others, then those actions are considered as positive or virtuous actions. And so in this way, based on your actions, we talk about bringing about the consequences as happiness or suffering. And so because of that, we say in order to have happiness, you should create or do actions which are positive. In order to avoid suffering, we should avoid the actions or the negative actions. And so we base our conduct of non-violence on the basis of understanding this working of the law of causality. And so in terms of the ethical practice, we say the best thing we should do is to help others, to serve others, and even if we are not able to help and serve others, at least do not harm them.
如果帮助他人的话是最好的，如果帮不到他人的话，至少不要伤害到他人。所以这两大点，缘起见和生害不害行呢，这是佛教的一个不共的一个特质。
当den지 레벨 중앙 사게 떠주 뒤타네 다 산지심된 데기 청고 타고 소윤도 아니 담바시사 소리 담바시 소야 거라 ngaranzo tunghe mindube induzane tunghe 담바시야 tunghe 디지 ngote 다 tunghe 디 아니 라도 지수 템베 규례 총어리 다 규례 가르스도 군주 담바시야 당가라서 동해 면도에 인도산에 다 동해 다 안디 동해 나라라 동해 숨송네 동해지 동해 교회 동해 두지기 동해 사송도가 자상가 당가서 고야디 다 두지기 동해 다 잡아 다 두지기 동해 사야지 힘을 들이 동해 이게 싸워르지 자상가 두지기 동해 세네 텔레 자와지 죽나 딴도 대화래 진짜 인도 딴도 대화에 대 고된디시 고된 타바디시 고된 타바디시니 다디 터치디시 줍치디시 디 대양 주도 깨는 되는 연구를 마도 melomjeni ya mare dinde indusane lamden시 전에 오다 군의 유문 초기 군제직 남자 초기 군제직 써야지 자와다와 땡중기 더주 뒤선에 시행으로
So with regard to dependent origination, even in the first sermon of the Buddha, when he gave the teaching on the Four Noble Truths, what the Buddha was actually saying was that we do not want suffering. And therefore, what suffering comes from is, he's introducing his disciples that suffering comes the First Noble Truth teaches us where the suffering, what suffering is, and which we do not want. And so if you do not want suffering, what causes suffering is, the Buddha says, it comes from its cause, and therefore the Second Noble Truth, the origin of suffering, is taught. And so within the suffering, there are three types of suffering, which is known as the obvious painful experiences, or called suffering of suffering, and then the suffering of change, or changeable suffering, and then the conditioned existential pervasive suffering. The third one is actually the basis of the first two kinds of suffering. And so once you are liberated or freed from this the third type of suffering, then what you reach is the lasting happiness. And this is our goal. And therefore, in order to reach this goal of liberation, freedom from the conditions, existential pervasive suffering, it does not, of course, come through prayers alone, but we must actually practice the causes, the factors which actually brings about that liberation. And that is the true path. And so the process of how we are led into suffering and led out of suffering is based on the teaching on dependent origination.
디 체외 있는 고된사지 단 고된 안 들어다 가지고 주는 것도 주야마디 이네 지시리야 예대버지를 봤다. 그봐 탑절 예대버지. 탑 시비지. 다 대주지기 이니 답은 나는 지금 고된 뭐를 파워 받아주 셔베이나 옹어베 루그 송연디 심지 춘이간 로르바다 자상고 실이 여유지로다 다 람딘스 루자네 실이 여유비 춘이디 또아데버지글 동원도 주데버지글이야다 람딘스기 윈디고 시인에서 시야되거든 사실이 인디 대신 오는 데 봤어야 되기 시인에서 대소 다 시인에서 되듯이 이나 다 딩아졸 패널 가야레스 땅 아졸 대화도 동행이 패널지기 다 가야레스네 데던 제니 애니 동행 시에버 차스 다 동행디 시에버레스 군중 방어자 고봉원도자 람고머자 다 되기 방랑 죽도도 되서 당구대 방랑 게지게 매비체 동행들이 뒤주들이 이니 때도 대원 고버들이 뒤주들이 뒤주지들이 그래서 니버데 다 드리비 인도산에 다 동행 시고 그래 군중 방고 그래 고봉원도 차고 람고머 차고 그래서 근데 다 람디체 다와나 아니 대대비 랑도 죽도도 제바이나 가바 가야스르바이나 아니 동행 시바시도 시바 참메스 동행 타다 빵스나 라르 시바 차요 말이 군중 빵스나 아니 라르이네 군중 빵차요 말이서 디스프다 세미지시베 이시스 소는 시체네다 세바시바도 미지와시바 사소 차용도 와 어다 되기 denshi digang la panglang jugdo di chebe yin jebu di dunga tada le yongsu trewa chi yong de gre da di mari
因此，佛在传授四圣谛的时候，或者转四谛法门的时候，以三种的一个角度来去转四谛法门的，以四谛的性质，以四谛的作用。
So, with regards to the teaching on the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha first gave this teaching on the introducing the identity or the nature of these Four Noble Truths, and so which actually shows the reality on the basis level. And so, what this means is that. Buddha introduces us to suffering, and then its origin and cessation. And cessation, of course, and path. So cessation and path, of course, are not within us at this moment, of course, but there are possibilities that we can actually have these experiences through our practice. And so cessation can be attained and through the path, practicing the path. And so these two are possibilities for us. And therefore, this shows that the reality, in reality, these four truths are there. And if this is the case, then the Buddha goes on to say how they actually affect us in our life in samsara. And so because of that, having taught what is the nature of these Four Noble Truths, then the Buddha goes on to say, talk about how to go about with these Four Noble Truths. And so he says, know the suffering. And by knowing the suffering, what is means is to you have to overcome the origin of suffering, the source of the suffering. And then he goes on to say, actualize the cessation and cultivate the path. And so this is to, of course, in the case of the first, showing the nature of the Four Truths, and he's not talking about what is bad or good and bad, or what are to be taken up, adopted, and what are to be discarded. But then in the second process, and he's actually teaching us to know suffering and overcome its origin, and actualize cessation and cultivating the path. And because they are related to us in our wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So if you know the process of knowing and overcoming suffering and actualizing the cessation and then cultivating the path, and what is the purpose of that? And so finally the Buddha actually repeats the Four Noble Truths in by way of saying that one should know suffering, but there's no knowing it. So it is like showing that, of course, once you attain the nirvana, there's nothing to be overcome and to be known. And so he also goes on to say that one should overcome origin of suffering, but there's nothing to be overcome. And so the same formula is really extended to the other Two Noble Truths.